I'm going to assume that by being here watching this video right now that you have some sort of interest in learning how to fly paramotors, or perhaps you just want to know more. And by the end of this video, I'm going to hope that I can instill some confidence in you to know whether paramotoring is right for you or if it's something that you might want to avoid for legitimate reasons that would strictly pertain to you. I'm going to talk about the cost, the getting started phase from training to your first flights when you're back home, the equipment, overall perspective on the equipment, fitness, and how it may affect you and your own personal experience with learning how to fly. Also the airtime experience, because sometimes we imagine things to be a certain way, and then when you experience it for the first time, you may feel as though it's not at all what you expected. So maybe I can pop that bubble into allowing you to understand the full reality of paramotoring so that you can make the best decision. If you feel as though I've helped you learn something by the end of this video, you can repay me by simply leaving a like, and if you haven't already subscribe. It just really helps me out in growing my channel. So let's get started with my 3 years experience smashed into this honest review on paramotoring. The cost of flying a paramotor, like any other form of aviation, is going to be the biggest inhibitor from any sort of enthusiast to be able to enter into the sport. The advantage paramotors have in comparison to general aviation is that the continuous cost is low, like lower than riding a dirt bike, a Harley Davidson, or some other motorsport. I spend $5 a week on gasoline with a splash of oil that I bought on Amazon, and it affords me many hours of flight. I don't know what the average hourly rate is for flying a small airplane like a Cessna, though I know that I can't afford it. That said, the upfront cost is intimidating. The total cost for all of these new items was about $14,000. Most people, including myself, don't have $14,000 of disposable money. However, I was pathetically desperate to fly, and before you laugh at me, look in the mirror, because you're here watching a review to see if it's worth it, knowing how expensive it is. Caveat, as cringeworthy as the upfront cost is, it was worth it to me, though I definitely don't think that the cost is justified. The most frustrating part on the subject of cost is that approximately $3,000 of the $8,000 goes to the distributor and their dealers. This is by no means intended to be a plug for Gravity Paramotors. However, they are an American company that sells a great paramotor for a lot less than the average paramotor. They're able to do this because, one, the distributors, dealers, sub-dealers don't make $1,000 a piece every time a paramotor is sold, and two, they've also designed this paramotor in a way that makes it possible to be assembled by you, the person buying into it, which is going to save them, the company, a lot of money on having a crew that assembles these paramotors. But my take on it, as I've mentioned in a previous video, is that, building your own paramotor is going to make you a lot more aware of the equipment that you're flying. So big thumbs up for that. If you know of any other sort of exemplary business that has a reputation for making the sport more financially accessible to individuals like yourself or me, then please leave them in the comments below so they can be recognized. I can't use the descriptive word I want to use just to prevent this video from getting flagged, but that's what the businesses sometimes do to the consumers in this market. Having covered my thoughts on cost, let's go ahead and move on into the section about getting started, which is going to cover the time period from training until, some of those first flights coming home after training. And I'm going to assume that you plan on seeking a reputable instructor with an excellent track record. And lastly, I will do my best to be speaking to you as if you were my best friend. It's like I want you to do it, but I also really care about you, so I want to make sure you know exactly what you're getting into. Like a real friend. Most obviously, paramotoring is a crazy concept, and it's common to physically experience this realization during your first flight. If you're anything like me, you'll continue to experience, holy shit, what the f*** am I doing? It's crazy. Most people who plunge headfirst into flying paramotors will overcome this fear as they begin to understand the aspects of the sport that come off as daunting or confusing at first. The fear will transition to a respect or an awareness of what could be if they became complacent. A very small percent of those who pursue paramotoring will wash out after their first flights, while fear is present to some degree in almost everyone experiences this overwhelming sense of accomplishment that floods over every square inch of your body. It's amazing. Think about it. You've worked so hard to come up with thousands of dollars for an overpriced flying machine that you couldn't stop thinking about. It came to me as like an overwhelming sense of accomplishment that you may have experienced if you already fly, or you may experience one day. If you feel like you have any fear of heights whatsoever, please heed my advice and find an instructor that can help you mitigate the risks affiliated with a fear of heights. Without a doubt, there are individuals out there who may not require this extra consideration, and while some people will have an excellent experience at these larger paramotor schools, or what I refer to as like almost like the puppy mill of training experiences, the larger size of them don't allow for one-on-one training that is common in general aviation. Granted, paramotors aren't nearly as complex to learn how to fly as a Cessna. However, your first flight in a Cessna also isn't a solo flight like it commonly is in paramotor training. The consequences of panicking during your first flights is unlikely to kill you, though it absolutely has the potential to scare you out of the sport, as it has done for several individuals that I know, including my wife. I believe that dropouts can be prevented if instructors accommodate their students well enough to allow them to feel safe. Being US PPA certified alone is not enough to qualify you as a great instructor. Make note of that. The best instructors not only teach the technical aspects of flying, but strive to learn more about you, considering themselves invested in your long-term success. Depending on how much interest this video gains, I will likely do a unsponsored recommendation of instructors located around the United States who I feel are like the sort of people you would want to learn from. Leave a thumbs up if you like the video. To cap this segment, I'll summarize by saying I had an awesome experience during my training. I did go to a training facility where there were multiple students. It wasn't that one-on-one situation. However, I feel as though there's a bigger demand for accommodating the many individuals out there who, like myself, can panic that first time you're suspended from some strings, looking down and you're like, oh shit, I have to get this on the ground. Like, this height will kill me. Trust me, it's something that happens frequently, and it's natural. You just need an instructor that can help you overcome that fear. After training, most people will have made up their mind about gear. So in this next section, I'm just going to briefly talk about paramotoring gear in general. No, not the cost of the gear, but the overall quality of the gear available in the market. The great news about this is that the gear is statistically safe, with almost no injuries caused by equipment failure. So as long as you purchase any known brand, you'll almost certainly be using equipment that is up to snuff. Most notably, gliders have become significantly safer over the decades. They are less prone to collapse and recover much faster if they do. And in the event that it's unable to recover, you have a reserve parachute that has a success rate that is considerably higher than the reserve parachutes in the past. The paramotor itself is also improved as well, though they still have 82-stroke engines that are very loud and problem-stricken. Advancements have been made by bringing the weight of them down to an average of about 50 to 60 pounds. However, the weight of a unit alone should not be the determining factor on whether you get a specific paramotor or not. On the topic of paramotor gear, from all of my past experiences and everything that I've gathered doing a paramotor podcast, I have come to understand that the equipment is extremely safe. So if you are on the fence whether you can trust this equipment, you can, and that's a great thumbs up for this section on paramotoring. The next bit that I'm going to cover is highly subjective, it completely depends on you. So I'm going to begin by saying that I am almost 30 years old. I am somewhat, physically fit, athletic build, I suppose, and I am relatively quick to learn new aviation concepts that will help me progress in paramotoring at a faster rate. You may not be as young as I am. You may not be the spring chicken that you used to be. And it may take you longer to learn complex concepts like multitasking that requires you to shift your body weight in one direction while applying throttle and using your other hand to apply some brake. For the most part, that's perfectly fine. It just means it might take you a little bit longer. Not a big deal. Not to beat a dead horse, but if paramotoring wasn't as expensive as it is, then more individuals would be able to learn this sport in their prime, which is in the best interest of not only the paramotor pilots to be, but also in the sport in general. So if you feel still by the end of this video that paramotors in general are overpriced, I encourage you to watch the video that I recently made where I do an in-flight review of the world's most affordable paramotor. This subject is not commonly understood until you fly paramotors. I can't find words strong enough that convey how incredible it is to fly a paramotor, especially when the conditions are right. The recipe for the perfect flight consists of 75 degrees, light steady winds from the west, and feeling focused. Odds are this won't be the case most of the times that I fly, but still paramotoring is extremely fun. For me personally, paramotoring isn't nearly as rewarding in the winter as it is in the spring or fall, but my unhealthy obsession with flying compels me to fly, even if it physically hurts. For those of you who ride motorcycles, winter flying is comparable to winter riding. Some of you watching this know what I'm referring to when I speak of frozen fingers when the temperatures drop into the 30s or lower. To combat frostbite, you need to wear gloves which make the flying tasks like clearing the glider's lines and clipping in feel very cumbersome. We don't have this fuselage, to sit in to keep that freaking cold winter air from blasting our faces. Yet some, including myself, still fly because it is just that good. For many people, paramotoring will be seasonal. And so $14,000 for something you can't do all the time. Let's dive into the reality of foot launching a paramotor. Most individuals watching this will want to foot launch a paramotor. This is to wear the engine on your back and take off using your legs. The alternative to foot launching is wheeled launching with either a trike or a quad. Having one of those allows the pilot to avoid using their legs. Foot launching is very physically demanding. Foot landing is even more physically demanding. Periodically, I experience sharp pains through my legs when I come down and land. This happens whether I'm flying my extremely advanced paraglider or the slow and forgiving Bodhi paraglider. It happens whether I'm flying my lightweight paramotor or if I'm flying my heavier paramotor. Like, it's just part of the sport. I'm determined to continue foot launching as long as I'm physically capable, though I'm certain that in the best interest of my physical health, I'll transition to wheels down the road, though I'm not sure when that will be. Honest review of paramotoring, airspace is a very, very serious consideration when it comes to flying these personal aircraft. It is also super subjective to where you live. My actual airtime experience with a paramotor is likely better than the average considering that I live in an area without many airspace restrictions. I can take off and fly my paramotor in any direction for any reasonable amount of time. I realize that some individuals enjoy referencing aeronautical charts, but not me. Though paramotoring is the biggest part of my life aside from my family, I don't take it that seriously. Don't get me wrong, paramotoring demands respect. There are potential hazards to yourself and others if you ignore the risks. However, some people treat paramotors as though they follow the same rules and regulations that general aviation aircraft do. While there are rules to follow, as outlined in Part 103, they're loosely written because the FAA feels as though extremely lightweight flying devices do not pose a substantial threat to anyone in the proximity. By flying in non-congested areas during daylight hours, I'm free to fly my paramotor however I want. It's freedom at its finest. If you live near any large airports, there's a chance that you'll need to travel outside of controlled airspace in order to abide by that Part 103. So if you're held up, with any sort of questions about the area that you specifically live in, do these two things. First, I want you to listen to episode number 12 of my podcast called the Paramotor Podcast, and I'm joined in this episode by Jeff Goen, who's just like ridiculously smart. He knows all things aviation, but in this episode, he does a deep dive into airspace as it pertains to paramotoring in a way that individuals like myself can understand. And secondly, I want you to go to Google, type in your city and your state, followed by the word sky vector or aeronautical chart, and look at your area. Hopefully by having listened to the podcast, you'll be able to look at your local map and understand if you'll be able to really enjoy the freedom that paramotoring can afford individuals like myself with very few restrictions. But just jump on and listen to it. Go to Google, check it out, please. So if you do live in a busy area, your experience flying paramotors may not feel as effortless or liberating as those who fly in areas without any controlled airspace nearby. It's all a matter of perception and whether or not flying paramotors is still worth the commute. I really hope that you've gained something from this video. If you feel as though you did, you can help me out by clicking that like button. By the way, I am super excited because I'm so close to hitting my goal of 10,000 subscribers. And if you want to be part of helping me get there, click that subscribe button. I look forward to saying hi to all of you in the comment sections. I'll see you there, and I hope to see you in the next one. Hope to see you in the sky too. I hope you fly. I hope I've convinced you. Here are some of the recommendations of videos you can watch next. I've heard they're pretty good. Where am I at on this screen? It's tough to record yourself. Oh yep, that's a good one. That's a good one. I don't know what it's actually showing. Check that one out. That's a good one too. That's a really good one. Oh, and check out this subscribe button somewhere. I suck at this stuff. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. See you down there.